Let's restore this old set of RTR Magnum speakers.
RTR was based in the Seattle area and turned out some really solid speakers in the 70s. These ones have a hole in one of the woofers and a broken wire terminal. I'm also going to replace the crossover capacitors, remove these watermarks, and replace the grill fabric. To start, I removed all the drivers except the 12-inch passive radiator for testing. They all work! Next up, let's patch that woofer cone. I put scotch tape over the front, then vacuumed all of the white aluminum powder off of the backside to keep the workspace clean. I'm gonna let the glue tack up a bit before applying it, so while I wait, I can get started on the grill cloth. The larger grills on the bottom of the speakers had been damaged, so the customer had a friend make these new frames, and he bought the cloth from Simply Speakers. I had just enough time to cut the fabric for all 4 grills before I needed to get back to my glue. The weight of the cone affects the frequency response of the woofer, so I only added a thin layer of glue around the edge of the tear and between the torn layers. And after peeling the scotch tape and a bit of dusting, the woofer and other drivers were looking nearly new. I found the easiest way to get a perfectly tight grill fabric is to start by stapling one whole side, then pulling the side across from it tight, then repeating those steps on the other axis and finishing with the corners, which is also where I used 2 staples to hold the Velcro in place.
So next up, we're going to recap the crossovers. First, we're gonna run what's called a Bodie plot on these crossovers so that we can see the frequency response.
And boy was it a mess. Looking quite clean with the new caps though.
Went ahead and put new binding posts on there, pretty slick, and cleaned these controls so that they don't crackle anymore. I also took a second to braid all of the wires.
And then I replaced the resistor on both crossovers. They tested fine, but the casing had become brittle. Kinda cool to see the insides of the resistor though. Next up was refinishing the cabinets, and for these watermarks, I thought I would try something new to fix them.
You wouldn't believe it, but that's mayonnaise, and it's supposed to help with the watermarks. How does it look? Oh, the marks are just darker now. Make a BLS, bacon lettuce speaker.
I guess I'm gonna have to get rid of them the grease this way, starting by filling all the damaged corners with quick wood epoxy, then sanding everything down. You'd be surprised how much the mayonnaise gummed up the sandpaper, even after a few cleanings with alcohol. To lighten the marks a bit, I put a paste of water and Barkeeper's Friend on them and let it sit for about 10 minutes. Once the cabinets were dry, I colored the epoxy to match the wood and applied a layer of Howard's Restore finish. They're not perfect, but the veneer was too thin to keep sanding and they're mostly gone, which is what the client wanted. This final coat of Howard's Feed and Wax really made the color pop. I just hope they sound as good as they look. At this point, there were only 2 things left to do. Reinstall all of the drivers, of which there are many, and sit down to enjoy the music.